formal introduction in the beginning of our videos.
So I'm Jim.
And I'm Jen.
And we're here courtesy of Grizzly Peak Creations.
Which I guess is the YouTube channel.
Which is our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He's our social media
He's our
manager.
producer.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
We follow instructions.
But we
From the
identify
17th.
ourselves as Skoolie San Diego on Instagram. So.
Yes.
GPC is the overarching thing.
There we go.
Skoolie San Diego is a subsection.
We're a subsidiary of GPC.
Got it.
There you go.
Okay.
But we are talking about building this RV
bus.
out of a school bus,
Yes.
aka Skoolie.
Yes.
So we've talked a little bit about some of the other stuff we've done, and now today we're going to talk about cleaning and surface prep and subfloor. Ooh.
That's exciting.
So exciting.
So, well, as you can see behind us, it's been cleaned and prepped, and we're starting to build stuff, but we wanted to explain what got us to here.
Yeah.
I think where we left off last was we had gotten all the rubber off and everything.
Demolition.
Yes,
All
the
the
rubber
finish
was
was
a
out.
nightmare to take
Yeah.
out. Yes.
So empty bus, but lots of holes and rust.
Yes.
That's
And-
kind of a rhyme.
And grime. And what did you? Are you a poet?
Yes.
And didn't know it.
So there was a lot of glue left over from the
It was
rubber.
gross.
There's rust. A little bit. This was from New Mexico, so it wasn't that rusty of a bus, but there was rust.
And
There
it's
were
old, so
Hundreds and hundreds of holes from the bolts
Yes.
and screws.
Which
'cause
who knew? I had no idea that the
Yeah.
bolts from the seats went all the way through the floor of the bus.
I think he means speak louder.
Yeah.
Oh, speak.
Project your voice because
So yes, I didn't know that the holes from the seats actually went all the way through the floor of the bus, and that those holes would have to be sealed somehow.
Yes, we saw lots of ideas.
Yes.
But
But the cleaning
right.
of it was the
So we
first
didn't
step.
want to start a foundation on a dirty hunk of metal. So
Yeah.
what we had to do was grind down everything that looked rusty. So Tyler and I were in here on our hands and knees with sanders and grinders.
Yes.
We had neat little grinding pads for an angle grinder, which did pretty short work of most of it. But we took all
It
the
was
rust
so
off.
pretty when you guys were done. I think there's a picture that you can flash up there.
yeah, there are.
It was
I will.
pretty and shiny.
We got rid of the
Clean
glue.
floor.
There were big patches of glue, and we got rid of all that. So the surface was now rust-free. But we
Yes.
know that metal.
Mostly. There were some patches of.
Well, yeah, some was actually pretty deep,
Yeah.
and we didn't want to grind away everything. So what we did was an old trick. We used it in the Navy all the time, but there's a product called. It's right behind you. Hold it up. We used a rust converter, which is a chemical that we smeared on the. We painted it across the surface basically, and
Yes.
it takes the rust and converts it into a primer.
It made it purple.
Purple. So we did that. We waited a day or two for it to finish reacting, and some of it didn't get all the way, so we kind of ground down the really thick stuff and put another layer on that. And then we always left was all the holes.
Yes, which took quite a bit of research to figure out what we were going to do with the holes, because the popular thing is to put pennies down to cover the holes.
I don't know how they attach the pennies, but
Epoxy or something.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
so.
Oh yeah, like
Gorilla
yeah.
epoxy or something.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
And
so
that seems really common to do that, but some extra research told us maybe not.
yeah. So what we decided to use was Bondo.
And stainless steel.
And some of the holes were kind of
discs.
big, so we bought little stainless steel discs about the size of my thumbnail.
And I think you just got those off of Amazon.
Yeah,
right?
off of Amazon
Yeah,
for
so they were
like
super cheap.
$5 for
Yeah.
a couple hundred.
Yeah.
No big deal. So we used this thick Bondo. It's called there's regular Bondo and then a thick.
Thick set Bondo.
Yeah, I forget the name. But it's a thicker Bondo, and we dabbed that on all the holes. Oh,
It's
before we
sticky.
started the Bondo, reading the Bondo instructions, it said, make sure it's a clean metal surface. So every hole, I took that grinder pad and took off all the surface prep we'd done
Yeah.
for the hole. But I don't feel bad about it because I feel like the inside of the hole got surface prepped too.
Oh,
So
that's
that's a
true,
good
yeah.
thing.
Wait, so what was the reason that we decided against pennies? There was a reason.
Well, this, there, it's a bimetallic reaction. If you have two different metals in a moist environment, you tend to make a battery and you have to do your own research, but modern pennies are mostly made of zinc covered with a little bit of copper coloring on the outside.
Okay.
And so zinc and iron in a moist environment can create an electrode and make a tiny little battery and corrode itself away.
Oh,
It will
okay.
eat the zinc away.
Okay.
So my theory is that if we were to do this in pennies, most of the pennies over a few years would kind of disappear. So
That makes sense. And since you'd already ordered the stainless steel discs.
right. So we
Why not?
forewent the pennies and went with the steel discs.
Come on, English major.
So there we had
So,
holes.
so the holes are
All
all
100 some odd holes
sealed.
covered with Bondo and or steel discs.
super
And
sticky.
we also weren't too worried about the Bondo sticking up
I
because,
think he's telling us we have 2 minutes left.
oh, well, that's plenty of time.
Okay. Thanks, Ty.
You're welcome. Just keeping you on track.
So we
Talk faster.
had lumps of Bondo, but
Yeah.
we weren't worried about it being a trip hazard because
Oh, yeah. Some of them were kind of sharp. By the
we
time
knew
They
that
were very
floor-
sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like almost metal. So we weren't worried about it because we knew we were going to put an inch of this stuff.
Bye.
Bye. So
Come back.
the whole floor is covered with this stuff, which is an inch thick XPS.
Could have just flashed a picture on screen.
Extruded polystyrene. Yeah, but seeing it in real life. There
Yes.
you go. Extruded polystyrene. And so we figured anything would compress.
It's just kind of,
And no big deal.
yeah, molded too.
So it's molded, and we squeaked a lot at first, but as all those little peaks are getting squished in, it's stopping squeaking.
Yep.
Yep.
Rust-Oleum primer. Oh yeah, so once we had everything done, we wanted to do a final rust preventative thing. So we painted the whole thing in Rust-Oleum all the
Yeah.
way up to here.
Yeah.
So all the
Which-
metal on the bottom is Rust-Oleumed.
Some of the things that we did may have been a little bit of overkill, but
Or underkill.
we wanted to be sure the floor would not require any additional work in the future.
We wanted
Hopefully.
a
So-
really solid foundation.
We made sure to do as many steps as we felt were really necessary. No cutting corners. We tried really hard not to cut corners
Yeah.
on the floor.
Well, and
So,
there are some other ideas that we've just elected not to take. So this is
Yeah.
our route. We'll let
this
you know in a
was-
few
yeah,
years.
Yeah, how it goes.
And with that,
I think that was
was a good.
our
Now we have to
floor
segue.
Our floor was done, so
So once we've laid a foundation,
then we got to start
then we
building.
need the second foundation.
Yes. So subfloor framing and so.
Oh, we're 3 seconds into subfloor and framing.
Okay.
Okay.
So the
I
floor is
restarted the
done.
timer.
Floor is
And
done.
then we're at the
All-
point where we got to start adding stuff.
Yes,
to the box.
additive manufacturing.
Yes.
We were finally done with the removal of the junk.
Now it was
Uh,
prepping the floor for insulation and a solid foundation.
right.
Which
So,
started with what?
well, we have seen, well, for the floor, we framed the floor.
Oh, yes.
The floor is covered with polystyrene, but it's pretty stiff, and I can stand on it. It has like 200 pounds per square inch. It's got a lot of compressive factors, so you can stand on them and it doesn't squish.
Yeah.
But we didn't want heavy furniture sitting on it and getting squished, so what we decided to do was underneath our plywood is a bunch of 1x2s.
1x2s, right?
Well, we thought they were going to be 1x2s because I wanted to buy 3/4 inch extruded polystyrene because that's exactly 3/4 inch thick, and a 1x2 is actually 3/4 inch
Right.
by 1.5 inch.
Really deceiving if you don't already know that.
So turns out there is no wood that's exactly a one inch thick.
Right.
So our
So you
1
guys
inch.
had to like actually cut all
Yeah.
of those pieces
we,
to
we,
size.
we put our sawhorse or table
Table
saw
saw.
to work.
Tables, like, yeah.
And
it came out
ripped a
great.
bunch of 2x4s into 1 inch thick strips. So we now
There's a
have,
picture of that somewhere.
yeah, probably, and
Flash
probably,
that up
so yeah, so it's all framed out by either
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 cross sections, and underneath each seam is an extra wide piece of 2x4 of 1 inch thick wood.
Right, so once all the 2x3s were put down and all of the insulation was put down, then you lined up the plywood to rest on top of what size piece
Right.
of wood? Like
Uh,
a bigger piece of wood?
No, there's no piece. All the framing is 1 inch thick stuff. So everything is 1 inch
No,
thick.
I mean the plywood that you
Some
have
of them
on
are
top.
wider, and then the
Yeah.
plywood goes down on top of that. And what we
Right.
did with the plywood is we just friction fit it. We did not fasten. I guess this is technically a floating floor because
Yeah.
we did not glue. We thought we would glue, but we decided not to glue because it's in
Well,
here
do you
pretty
want to
good.
count caulking as glue?
No, because we have nothing caulked to the surface of the
Yeah.
floor.
So
So-
we're relying on friction and gravity and the weight of furniture
Yeah, well,
to keep the floor
we
in
cut
place.
these plywood. These are all 4x8 sheets of plywood, and since the bus is 7 feet 6 inches wide,
Yeah,
we cut 6 inches off the edge of each hunk of plywood, brought them in here,
Yeah.
and it was a little
you guys
rough
had a tough time
getting them
it.
squeezed in under
Yeah.
these lips because just geometry worked out that they were just. So we had to kind of jump on it, and it would pop down.
Yep.
And we popped this piece down and it would fit perfectly and it wasn't moving. So we were not worried about it moving.
Nope, and it
In
seems
addition
pretty
to
solid.
the friction fit, around the edges we've got these, I don't know if you can see it if I'm on frame or not, but these 1x2s are all bolted into the frame of the bus and they're pinching the plywood down. So we're not ever going to get any curl up in the middle. We could possibly get some curl or up in the sides. We could possibly get some curl up in the middle, but we've
I feel like the weight of the furniture is going to prevent that
yeah.
from happening.
We'll let you know in a few years if
Well,
we
and
were wrong.
Part of the reason for the 1x2s on the edges was to also allow us to create more of a water barrier so that nothing could get into the cracks on the ends of the plywood. Because we
Yeah.
wanted to really, after having pulled up all the rubber and seeing everything that was underneath it and the damage it was doing to the steel floor and the rust that it was causing, we wanted to be sure that it was gonna be real hard for water to get under our subfloor. So the 1x2s allowed us to add some caulk and seal all of that.
Right.
Right.
So the whole bottom of the bus is basically a 1 inch deep bathtub.
Yes.
And even more than that because we also sealed around the tops of the 1x2s, so it's really the width of that. It's kind of a bathtub. And the concept is it's all going to drain out the back if it ever needs to do that. So it's in place.
So the floor and everything was done, and then we prepped the plywood
Yes, because
to
it's
make
raw
it
plywood.
waterproof too.
So we caulked, and then we got oil-based primer
Yep.
for sealing the wood
Yeah,
and
what
getting.
was that's over there too? Cover stain. Zinsser cover stain is what we used for the top of the plywood.
So that we did 2 coats of that, so that in all the exposed wood, and on top of that, we got
Dry lock.
Drylock brand.
What's
paint.
Drylock? I don't
It's-
even know that.
It's just another paint that they sold at Lowe's that's waterproof.
Oh, so the wood is super protected.
Yeah, we've already seen that in action.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
Our
Yeah.
roof hatch is really leaky.
So the
Yeah.
emergency, this right here,
Yep.
right? The emergency
Yep.
roof hatch leaks a little bit, so it's tested the floor because some water's gotten through because it's actually raining in San Diego.
And as we are working through our plumbing concepts
Oh, right.
and working it out, we
We're
are
getting some drips back
getting
there.
drips and
Yeah.
figuring out how to make sure the plumbing doesn't leak. It's been fine because
Yep.
the water
It
beads
just
and
beads on
rolls
top,
and
right?
collects in a pool in the corner. So
Yes. So mission
Um,
accomplished.
yeah.
Good job.
So I think the floor is good. I feel good about the floor.
Yep.
You're not gonna see it because when we're done, there's gonna be furniture around the
Yep.
edges, and there's going to be anywhere where we're gonna walk is we're gonna
We're
put
gonna
like
put flooring down.
wood flooring or vinyl
Wood
there's-
vinyl
wood look-
floor.
vinyl flooring.
Which it seems like a lot of people put flooring down in their whole bus and then put stuff on top of it. But then what do you do if you have to replace damaged floor? So we're thinking we're gonna put stuff down and then put floor around it.
Right.
we'll
So that's
see.
our
We'll see.
concept, and that's where we are so far.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging out.